There we go. Technical difficulties. How you doing, everybody? Welcome back, Four Eyed fans, to another episode of we're not doing Behind the Frames anymore. We're going to keep this in our Fourth and Frames podcast category going forward. As you know, we here at Fantasy and Frames have been doing a lot of live streaming lately. We have a lot of article content coming out, and we're really excited to get you ready for week 2 of the fantasy football season. So this week, as we will do every Wednesday, are our Four Eyed start and sits. Before we get to that, though, let me introduce everybody going around the frames. Mr. Nate Markham, as always, how are you doing, sir?
Wonderful. Good to see you guys.
Todd Barnes, how are you?
Glad to be back.
David, it's like your family with us, all of us, at this point.
The drunk uncle who keeps showing up, that you don't want there.
David, of course, from fantasygo.com. Head over to fantasygo.com. Sign up for all the resources they have there. Hire us at Fantasy and Frames to help guide you each week during the fantasy football season. And this week we have a very, very special guest, the Fantasy Dude. You can find him on Twitter. Actually, find you on Twitter. What's your handle?
At TFF Dude, and Instagram also at TFF Dude.
Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this guy is taking over TikTok. TikTok is an untapped resource, and he has done a lot of great work over at TikTok. So definitely give him a follow there. And of course, build him up on Twitter also. We in the fantasy community like to build each other up, and that's what it's all about. And with that, let's talk about some news in the fantasy community, specifically dealing with the Four Eyed Championships. That's right, our charity tournament that we started back in July. And we just finished week 1, and rankings and overall standings were released today. You can head over to fantasyandframes.com and get that information there. And, of course, we are posting that on Twitter. Nate, how did you do in week 1?
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
how'd you do, Nate?
So I had some unfortunate situations that happened. I had a couple players, mostly Nick Chubb, and I had everybody that decided to take week 1 off. They wanted to introduce our drunk uncle into the league and let him just beat me senseless. Dave, congratulations. It was man, it started off so great when Kelsey came out Thursday night, but went in the crapper.
I got pretty lucky with Devontae Adams, to be fair. So
That didn't hurt.
His 1,570 yards and 50 touchdowns definitely helped me. So
I think a lot of people felt comfortable after the Kelsey game. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's deceiving Thursday night. Doing well on a Thursday night can really give you that false sense of security. I've been there before. You think you're off to a hot start, but no, it was interesting being in an IDP league. I went with a flyer around. I put Stephon Gilmore there because I didn't really have anyone else, and I was very lucky he got that pick. So I didn't realize how much that interceptions, how many points they count for. So that was kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, again, every week, head over to fantasyandframes.com. On Wednesdays, the rankings will be updated, and of course, we will tell you on Twitter and on Facebook who is in the lead. Thank you very much for participating in the Four Eyed Championships. Thank you for setting your rosters. Thank you for taking it seriously. Obviously, the money gained and donated will be sent to charitable causes. And, of course, with everything that's going on in the world, the more charity we can give out, the better. Now, let's get into some relevant fantasy football news. This hits home to me because I have both of these running backs on my roster. They were going to be my RB2 and flex. Talking about Le'Veon Bell and James Conner. Headaches, gentlemen. Are we surprised that these two in particular? Ryan, you're shaking your head. I should have seen this coming.
James Conner. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been shooting the praises of James Conner all offseason. If he can stay healthy for 16 games, he's the top 10 running back.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. When is he going to stay healthy? I expected it, so that's why I faded him in all the leagues that I had an opportunity to draft him in. I would take a person like Drake or someone instead of Conner usually when that decision came. So,
yeah, Jake Thompson. Yes. Yikes, indeed. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
So the one thing I found out, and this is my idiocy, I didn't realize IR is now only 3 weeks. It's only it used to be 8, correct?
Just for this season. It's just for this season, I think.
Yeah.
Because of what the COVID stuff.
So I mean that certainly helps with someone like Le'Veon Bell. I know it sucks having him burn a spot on your bench for 3 weeks, but I'd rather that knowing that he's potentially coming back to full health afterwards. But
well, that's funny that you mentioned that. Is because taking advantage of these IR designations really helps you out if you're trying to like fill in the gaps in your roster. So just, as soon as Le'Veon Bell was put on IR, for example, I'm looking at my ESPN app and it still has him listed as doubtful. And I'm tweeting ESPN, hey, hurry up, put him on IR so I can put him in my IR spot and put in a claim for somebody else. So take advantage of that while you can, folks. It's not something that we normally have that opportunity to do. And the next bit of news that I was ready for today before all the plethora of news happened. We'll get into that a little bit later. Michael Thomas is out for a few weeks, high ankle sprain. This sucks. I, too, had Michael Thomas, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. The only one that was a saving grace for me was Devontae Adams. So it sucks, man. Like, what do we think of this Saints passing attack now that Michael Thomas is out? Let's go to Todd, resident Saints fan.
I mean, it's sad, and I definitely don't want them to rush him back because it is high ankle. So, but yeah, I think Emmanuel Sanders is definitely the main benefactor. Jared Cook's probably going to get a few more looks. Definitely going to go to AK. I know people are on the Traquan Smith train, but just being a Saints fan, I've always looked at Traquan Smith as an option, and I just can't trust him enough to actually get behind that.
Nate, you agree with that?
So I have a question, really, and I don't know if this is something that anybody's noticed. Has Peyton ever put both Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara out on the field, necessarily split one out wide? Because I could see that as a scenario that they might actually do. I mean, the better the player on the field, the better opportunity they have, and that seems like something they could do with both. Both are good pass catching backs. Both have opportunity. Is that something that we maybe should pay attention to?
That sounds like I would hope so, right? Ryan, you were about to say something?
I this literally just popped in my head while we were discussing this with all the Allen Robinson trade news. Maybe the Saints might take a peek at that.
I think I saw on Twitter that they have like $6 or $8 million in salary cap there. I don't know what draft capital they have to do that.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what they have, but it literally just popped in my head as a thought.
The one thing that I'm I guess pivoting more towards is that people are talking about, okay, who's going to take the Michael Thomas space? It's not necessarily the case for me, guys. I'm lowering all those guys in my rankings lower than a limbo because Emmanuel Sanders is not Michael Thomas. He does not come in and get 16 targets, 14 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael Thomas is the number one wide receiver in the NFL. So the trouble is that Emmanuel Sanders isn't going to see double coverage. They're going to stack the box with both Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, which means a lot more pressure on Drew Brees. So I think the whole offense takes a hit, guys. I'm sorry to say, Todd, but I love watching the Saints play. But having Michael Thomas, get that double coverage really opens up that whole team, and I just think it really needs. It's going to change the game plan for sure.
Yeah, that's who moves our chains. Like that's who moves the chains every week for us. So not having him, that's the big thing is he moves the chains for us.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, I don't know what it is across other platforms, but going back to ESPN, they have him listed as doubtful. So you can't, as of right now, put him on an IR spot, which blows.
Last time I checked, I think Sleeper was the same too.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
Same with Yahoo too. Yeah, they're all, none of them are IR, I'm pretty sure, but correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Yeah, I guess they haven't officially designated him, the Saints that is, as an IR.
Yeah, I don't think we have yet.
Okay. Now, for today, some breaking news from today. Chris Godwin has a concussion. That's fantastic. Insert heavy sarcasm. What do we make of this? Is O.J. Howard a potential play this week at tight end, given his success? David, I know you're a big Gronk person.
Hey, I want to
get your opinion on this right away. David, what are your thoughts?
You can just skip past me. You know what I'm going to say. Look, I actually, once again, similar to the Saints, I think it hurts the whole offense, to be honest, including Gronkowski, because, really, Godwin's similar to, he's not Michael Thomas talent level, but you've got a pretty banged up Mike Evans. Chris Godwin obviously opened up those lanes too, so there's really no one on the outside now that's really that they can really open it up for the guys. And they're running backs. We saw how poor Ronald Jones was. Leonard Fournette did good, but they didn't really use him much. Yes, it might open up Gronk, it might open up OJ and Brate, but once again, it hurts the whole Buccaneers offense, including Tom Brady.
Scotty Miller might get some more targets.
Yeah, he probably will. He did okay.
The
It's a good matchup. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they couldn't have asked for a better week to go into a banged up week against Carolina. I mean, and that's not a knock against Carolina. I think their offense has a potential. Teddy's proven he went deep quite a bit. They have flashes, but their defense is just too poor to even I think to hold up with a Godwinless or a half Godwin, half Evans offense.
Mm-hmm. In week 1, Brady threw to the tight end on 29.4% of targets. And OJ Howard saw 2 red zone targets. So, I mean, I think he's probably red zone or touchdown dependent, but
maybe they run a lot of 12. Who knows?
It's
right?
one of those weeks he could fall in the end zone.
They run a lot of 12 formations, and they have the 2 tight ends out there. I mean, you got 2 big bodies like that. You're going to have to put someone on them.
Yeah, and that's the challenge for fantasy rosters going forward is then at that point, then you're just trying to guess and grab bag which one's going to take advantage. And that
gets
part
the touchdown.
sucks. Exactly. And like Jake says, he thinks that Gronk and Howard both could score. And that's a definite possibility. Well, Tom's looking to bounce back a little bit. He's getting a little criticism. I don't think he's ever gotten that, especially from his head coach.
Oh, yeah, he definitely put him on blast this week after practice. Did we just lose David? Oh, no. Okay, we'll get David back in a little bit.
He heard us talking bad about Gronk, and
I know.
he's like, I'm out.
Did you hear that? We were talking bad about Gronkowski, and all of a sudden you're like, screw it, I'm done.
Well, that's why I
done.
left. I just figured I'll go grab a cup of coffee.
I don't
Sorry,
need this
guys.
negativity.
So another injury update, which I believe you guys mentioned before the show. Jamison Crowder left practice with a hamstring injury. Are we super duper concerned with that? I know as a Washington fan, he was plagued by hamstring injuries, especially his last season in Washington before he went to the Jets. Didn't have to deal with that last year, but here we are again, another hamstring issue. Are we concerned,
I'm not
Ryan?
sure I'd even play him this week if I'm being honest.
Going against San Fran.
Right.
Like,
That's a tough D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like we were talking earlier about, with Lev being out, the amount of fab that was spent on Frank Gore. I don't know if I would have spent the money on Gore because, I mean, you can't start him this week, right? I mean, there's no chance that you're going to ever put him out against that defense. But, it's really hard to sit Crowder, though, isn't it? I mean, man, you just
you're
think
in a full
the targets
PPR, yeah.
I mean, they have to go somewhere. But if your third option is that bad, then I understand. But I think that – and I'm a Crowder fan. I love Crowder. I have him in more leagues than I probably care to share, but I still worry about that defense.
Here's the thing, though. When we're talking about defense, and I'm going to kind of switch the topic to individual defensive play, this is an example of how real football and fantasy football are different.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is for the Jets is probably going to be on the field a very long time. And what does that mean for individual defensive players? That means a lot of volume. Marcus May was one of the top scoring fantasy performers last week. Safety for the Jets, he's not taking over the Jamal Adams role. That's what Bradley McDougall is doing. But at free safety, he was just tearing it up last week. He was getting plenty of tackle volume, which is pretty impressive for a free safety. And he was definitely available on your waiver wire. If he's still there and you need a defensive back spot or a safety spot, go pick him up. He is going to be the guy in that secondary. He's not Jamal Adams. I'm not saying he's Jamal Adams, but he's going to be put in a position that Jamal Adams was put in scheme-wise, and I think that's going to be very advantageous for all you IDP players. DJ Ranville, hi. Hello. Welcome to Fourth and Frames. Oh, hold on. We got another question here coming up. I traded Keenan Allen for David Montgomery. What do you guys think about that?
I like it.
You like it, Ryan?
I like it.
PPR?
Yeah,
I'm
DJ
a
Ranville.
Keenan Allen
PPR or what is
believer.
it?
PPR or non-PPR, I'd still do that. I'm a running back junkie, though. I like my running back.
I think it can go either way.
Yeah.
I was worried, honestly, the fact that Tyrod looked Mike Williams' way so often. And
Exactly.
And
That's why I like it.
and Keenan Allen had to be. I mean, he had to be open. I mean, dude, all he does is get open, but that's concerning. That's a little concerning going forward that they didn't utilize him or Eckler properly, personally. But I digress. And
I think next week's going to be a correction on the Eckler issue.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, 'cause I was
Eckler's
looking
gonna
at-
get overcorrected.
I was looking at Eckler's last couple games against the Chiefs, and he's gone off. So
Mhm.
And look,
if
this goes.
if they don't fix the Eckler thing, that's kind of concerning.
Is this for the Joshua Kelly managers who spent some fab to get him this week. What are our thoughts with him?
No, Eckler is the guy. I mean, and you guys know I'm not the biggest Eckler believer, but Eckler is the number one guy there. I think there's way too much hype behind Josh Kelly. Here's the thing, and this goes for pretty much most teams in the NFL. There was no preseason, so there was a lot of getting the rust off this game. To mention the obvious one of Saquon Barkley, who was 12 rushes for -6 yards by 3/4 of the game or something. We need to write last week off as an outlier and go, all right, there was a lot of teams just getting used to it. It was their first time in full contact, in a true game situation. So don't go overthinking it. We saw how good Eckler was last year, but he'll go back to form.
I think the first couple weeks are going to be just a whole feeling out process among everyone in the league. This is their preseason. September's their preseason. It's just, unfortunately for them, they have all their starters in there instead of the practice squad and a couple guys sprinkled in.
Yeah.
This year is kind of like how every year is for Belichick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, folks, let's get into some start and sits. That's what you're here for. We're going to help you pick out some players that are going to help you have some fantasy football success this week, and we're going to warn you about players who may not be able to do that for you. Let's start with the quarterback position. Let's go with Nate. Nate, give us a quarterback that you think we should start this week. And let's not go with the obvious ones. Let's dig deep here just a little bit.
Well, I'm not going to dig so deep that you're going to start over. I mean, you drafted studs, you're going to start your studs. But I think that maybe one that is kind of drafted, I think Josh Allen falls right in that range where you might have taken Allen and then you followed up with someone late. Josh Allen has owned Miami in his career. I mean, if you look back, we have to consider that he's kind of similar to what Cam did last year. Cam, was pretty much running all over him. Set a Patriots his record for rushing with them, which is odd. And Josh Allen goes in, and so you look back at 2018 and 2019, in those 4 games, he has 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns passing, and then 95 yards rushing, 135 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns and a touchdown in multiple games. So I think the opportunities there. Miami has improved defensively. I think that, but I think it's mostly in the secondary where they've improved enough. I see Josh Allen just pretty much controlling the ground game. As much as I want to give the ball to Devin Singletary, we all know that I do, and I want him to take it between the 20s. I think this is a Josh Allen game.
Quarterback for me, real quickly, is a shocker to all of you. It's Mr. 19.92 fantasy points from Monday night. Mr. Ryan Tannehill going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, according to Pro Football Focus, ranked 20th in pass rush. Go Team Tannehill. But then again, I'm biased. David, you were about to say something?
I was going to say with the Josh Allen thing, I was actually going to. He's one of my sits this week for the reason that he did well last week, but you made a great point about that secondary. Last week he threw for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns, I believe. That's not very Josh Allen-like, and I guess it's not necessarily okay. I should rephrase. He's not a sit per se. It's just a pump the brakes. Josh Allen is not going to throw for 300+ yards every game. Yeah, he's not.
That was his first 300-yard game in his career.
I
have
didn't even
Watson
know
and Allen in one league, and I'm sitting Watson to play Allen.
Mm-hmm.
He's still going to do good. He's still going to do good, but I guess I'm just saying expect that rushing performance. But I think we're going to see another 200 yards in the air, maybe a touchdown.
And I would take that. I'm sorry, Jorge. I'm saying I'd take 200 yards and a touchdown and 85 yards rushing and a touchdown versus like Ryan, like you said, like Watson. That's I'll stop there because I don't want to give away too much. Jorge, what were you getting ready to say?
Well, I was going to say, it makes you wonder how much him fumbling the ball twice on design runs played a role in the offensive coordinator saying, you know what, don't run the ball, throw more. And, when watching that game, as a Josh Allen manager, I was ecstatic. He got me 28 fantasy points in FanDuel scoring, but he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That John Brown easy touchdown where he was open by 10 yards. I mean, you were seeing that all day long. I don't. Again, this is another example where real football and fantasy football diverge. The rushing floor is there, obviously. But man, if you're going into the season, first of all, if you went into the season thinking that you were going to rely on Josh Allen's arm to get you fantasy success, you did it wrong. But it's okay because it'll get you some rushing success. But put things into perspective a
I
little.
was going to say quickly, my start was Cam Newtown, I think his name is, from the New England Patriots.
Yes.
But look, he did well. You got to admit, he rushed like he did from 2016, 70 days. The talk of the town has been, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It is sustainable. He's had a year off. I think we're going to see that same Cam rushing performance. Now, the only difference is he has no weapons other than Julian Edelman there. He was throwing to Ryan Izzo, for God's sake. Is it Ryan Izzo? Whatever his name is, So unless they can pick up a decent name, if they can get an Odell Beckham, then yes, his passing upside is going to be there. But he only threw for 155. But the floor is safe with Cam Newton now.
Yeah, so I put out my four-eyed starts and sits article over at fantasyandframes.com, and I know a lot of you have seen it, so thank you very much for heading over there. Definitely check it out. I have differing opinions about Cam Newton this week, and I guess I'll just give this one away.
Oh,
he looked like Superman. He looked like Superman in Carolina, and that is a bad thing when you're going up against one of the better tackling defenses in the NFL. You look at what Matt Ryan was able to do from a fantasy perspective. He had to throw the ball, I think, league leading 46 times to be fantasy viable, and that's with elite weapons. Like you just said, he only has Julian Edelman. I don't even know if you can count on James White, to be honest with you. You're not counting on Sony Michel.
Adams made a huge difference on that Seattle defense, too.
Yeah.
Like he made
yeah.
an impact immediately. I noticed it. I'm a Falcons fan, and I noticed it immediately when he was all over the field.
Well, Nate, we were talking about this in our podcast for fantasyguy.com, as well as during our pregame show. Our big concern with Jamal Adams was that schematically he was allowed to roam all over the field in New York, and we didn't know for the Seahawks if he was going to be allowed to do that or if he was just going to be put in his little corner on the field. And we found that out really quickly.
Very shocked by that. I really did assume he was just going to, hunker down in that cover two and do nothing but stay back a little bit. But he did. Immediately filled into Jamal Adams' type scenario, which is great for IDP.
Todd, do you have a quarterback for us?
I'll give us two lower ones. I think Jimmy G has a bounce back week, and then Mitch Trubisky plays the Giants, and Giants don't have that great of a defense. And I know last year Mitch Trubisky did pretty well against them. So if you are in a deeper league, 2-quarterback league, those are two options you could even throw in there.
Well, the old adage, squeaky wheel gets the grease, and Allen Robinson has been causing some noise. And so you better believe that if he's still a Chicago Bear come Sunday, which I don't expect him to be moved at any point this season, to be honest with you. I think it was just him making a big gripe about it.
Belichick's on the phone.
Washington, if you're watching, you should be on the phone too. But I think you're right. I think the rushing floor is going to be there. And I think the passing floor, you look, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, and then Juju, all were fantasy viable wide receivers. I'm not saying that wide receiver core is the same as Chicago, but you got Allen Robinson, who was one of the most targeted wide receivers in the league last year. You have the emergence of Anthony Miller in the slot, which Todd, the articles you wrote in the summer, you were really emphasizing the slot position at wide receiver, and Anthony Miller was definitely somebody you were hammering home about. So if he's available on your waiver wire, by the way, Anthony Miller, I would spend some fab on him. Or if you can pick him up just off of waivers, do that as well. So I think there's some pieces there. It's going to be interesting where they go as a team. But from a fantasy perspective, I like that Trubisky pick. All right, let's go to running backs now. Ryan, actually, let's do two sits real quickly, if you don't mind. Nate, who's a sit at quarterback for you?
A sit at quarterback for me?
Yeah.
It was actually who Ryan's sitting, Deshaun Watson. He's going up against that Baltimore defense. Second most blitzes last week. I don't think that their offensive line can necessarily stop him. He was already crushed, in the KC game. He was under pressure constantly. Baltimore even has a better defense. So I don't see him personally. Granted, if you drafted him with the draft capital, you probably have to start him in some capacity, but he's a sit for me.
Ryan?
I was my main sit this week is probably going to be I was looking at I'm not a big fan of Dwayne Haskins against the Cardinals. I don't know. A lot of people are saying they were impressed with him last week. I didn't see it. So I'm not a big fan of Haskins this week.
On the flip side, Kyler Murray better watch out this week because that Washington D line was getting after him.
Mhm.
Let me tell you, I was seriously considering putting him in a sit in the sit column. To be honest with you, but you look at what is the difference between Philadelphia's receiving core and what Arizona's receiving core is, and so he has more weapons to throw to and can spread defenses out a little bit more than what Philadelphia could do.
Another name I'm also not really paying attention to too much this week is Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he had a great week last week against Vegas, but that was Vegas. I think Tampa's got a much better defense. They're going to be able to control the clock a little more. So I'm not looking that way either.
All right, David, you got to sit for us real quick.
Are we still on running back, or are we doing other ones?
Yeah, just one more quarterback.
One more quarterback is Daniel Jones. Now, he threw for 279 yards, 2-2, went 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had 1 rushing attempt for 22 yards. So he's not getting you the yards on the ground. And I mean, the Pittsburgh defense were just lights out of this world, right? He did a lot of his damage in garbage time, and that one massive bomb that he threw to Darius Slayton. So you take those 2 out, and he has a rough game. So I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on Daniel Jones, and Josh Allen we've already discussed as my other guy.
All right, let's go to running backs. Ryan, who's a start for you this week?
For me, I actually really like Chubb and Hunt this week. Just the combo of the two of them. Last week they had a really rough matchup with Baltimore, so I didn't expect them to do as well. Like they didn't get a touchdown, but I still feel like they both contributed. It's just game script kind of took them out of the game, and they weren't even. Hunt got what he needed because they needed the passing down work going on. But I think this week they're going to be able to control the clock a lot more using Chubb just to run it down their throat. I don't believe in the Bengals defense at all. I don't think Vickers going to want to lose to another first overall pick. I think he's a little too prideful for that. So I really like Hunt and Chubb this week.
That's a really good point. You look at the Bengals defensive line. Geno Atkins is going to probably be declared out. A couple other players along the defensive line are going to be out. So that's definitely an interesting play. That's a really good play right there. David, which running back are you sitting this week?
The guy who I'm sitting now, if I ever want to, if I ever eat this food, I usually pass gas, right? And that's beans. And who makes beans? It's Heinz. All right, I am passing on Nyheim Hines. Now, this guy rushed 7 times for 28 yards, guys. And look, I had a guy in my league, I put it on Twitter today, spent 100% of his fab on Nyheim Hines. That's absurd. He got 1 short rushing touchdown. JT split that backfield with him after Marlon Mack came in. Let it be clear that it is JT's backfield. And I've not been a JT believer because, as you guys know, I've been a Mac believer. Obviously, that's not the case. Nyheim Hines is maybe the pass-catching back, if that. But even with the pass catching, we saw JT catch 6 of 6 balls for about 50 yards, I believe, right? So what role does Nyheim Hines have? I don't know. And I think people are just overhyping the Beans man way too much. I'm big time pumping the brakes on him. I put no waiver claims in him for any of my leagues, even if it was free.
Nate, who's the running back that you're starting?
I actually, to go along with exactly what David's saying, is Jonathan Taylor. I love the matchup. I mean, you look at a Minnesota team that just gave up 155 yards rushing, 158 yards rushing on the day. So I think that it's a possibility that you get a little bit of Nyheim Hines, but I think game script's going to play. I don't know why I say this because they just lost to Jacksonville, so maybe I'm just optimistic. But I feel like Minnesota's defense is not as – I think they're a little more susceptible than what they were, obviously, going into the season.
They're 31st against the run. That should tell you all you need to know about the play for Jonathan Taylor right there. Mm-hmm. Todd, give us a running back that you're sitting this week.
I don't know if I necessarily sit him because you draft him high, but I'm definitely gonna
or temper expectations on. Let's put it like that.
I'll put him in my flex this week instead of my RB spot. How about that? So Kenyon Drake, I was already talking about that defensive front.
Washington,
They gave up the least amount of points last week to running backs, so that's a nasty defense up front. So
Ryan, do you have another start for us?
Another start. Oh, geez. Let me pull this up here real quick. I can give you two that I really like. I like David Montgomery versus the Giants. I mean, Benny Snell stepped in and really just ran it down their throats. I don't think the Giants are going to be able to stop Montgomery. And I also, if this Kittle thing winds up happening, he doesn't play. I love Jerick McKinnon this week, man. They have no receiving options. He's coming in with fresh legs. I mean, Tevin Coleman's coming back, so he could take away a couple of those passes. But I really think McKinnon's going to line up and in PPR. I'm all about McKinnon this week.
So, Jake, you say David Johnson. Head over to fantasyandframes.com and read the start and sit article to get a take there. But I'll ask the rest of you. David Johnson against Baltimore. Nate, what are your thoughts there?
I don't want to start anybody against Baltimore.
Never.
Really.
Hey, Jorge, I do have one deep start for y'all if y'all are really hurting for running backs. Peyton Barber had 17 touches last week and scored a touchdown. If you're in a deeper league and you really need some help, the Cardinals gave up more points to running backs last week than any team in football. Peyton Barber, I mean, it's looking like he's going to get the touches at least early on, and he got the goal line work. So
I'd rather him over Gore if you're that.
Yeah, definitely him over Gore.
I'm sorry. I'd almost say him over Gordon. I don't like Melvin Gordon against Pittsburgh this week.
I don't like Melvin Gordon either. I totally agree with you there. I am fading Gordon this week.
Yeah, I agree with it. With the David Johnson question, I mean, I'm playing David Johnson, but I'm not happy about it. I've got him in 8 out of 8 leagues, so I've really got no choice, to be honest. I'm a big Johnson believer this year, but not against that stout defense. I'm tempering my expectations.
I have one question for Jorge, though, because you're in the area. How do you think Gibson's going to do this week? Will they let him ride finally, or are they just going to shut him down again?
Gibson is going to be something, I believe, later on in the season, not right now. You saw the commitment to Peyton Barber last week, 17 touches.
Exactly.
Look, 29 yards, that's horrible. I'm not going to sit here and say that he was a efficient running back, but he was given all the goal line touches. He was given the volume, and as we all know, volume is king in fantasy football. And like Todd said, Arizona is one of the worst when it comes to run defenses. I think, with Patrick Peterson and then the secondary with Budda Baker and all these coverage guys in Arizona, I don't think Washington is going to be passing the ball as efficiently as people are hoping, despite what Dwayne Haskins was able to do in the second half of the game last week. I think this is going to be a run-heavy approach from Washington, and Peyton Barber and the volume there. Give me some volume there. All right, let's go to wide receivers. Todd,
just quickly, my one start for the running back was Todd Gurley, by the way. A guy who got four rushing yards per attempt. It was game script dependent. He was very much rushing from behind. Only 14 rushes for Todd Gurley. He handled it well. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I believe his touchdown was on a 4th down, right? Was it a 4th down?
I believe so, yeah.
So they believe in him, especially in the goal line. So don't fade Todd Gurley just because he got 56 yards. That just very quickly wanted to add that in.
Jamal Adams was the reason Todd Gurley didn't get more than 56 yards.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
We can't understate enough Jamal Adams' importance to that defense. And
oh my goodness, I kept looking at my wife. Are you seeing?
Do you not have an appreciation for the greatness that you were watching on TV? All right, Ryan, let's stick with you, man. Let's talk about some wide receivers. Since we did a start for running back with you, let's do a sit for a wide receiver.
Preston Williams. I'm not touching Preston Williams this week. I've been seeing random articles all throughout the interweb and people talking about Preston Williams if Parker doesn't play, and I'm not feeling it. I'm really not feeling it. I don't know what people are talking about or what kind of juice they're drinking there, but don't get me wrong. I think there's definitely points to be had. I just don't think they're with him.
Well, Buffalo, according to PFF, is ranked number 2 in coverage. Yeah. So I think that's a good call by you, especially if Parker doesn't start. On
the same token, I put Parker in there too. I'm just saying Preston Williams because I don't know if Parker's going to play.
Right.
So,
if he gets Tre'Davious, he's done. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's shut down.
Todd, who's a start for you this week?
I wish I could get him in more leagues. It's Paris Campbell going up against the Vikings this week.
Yeah.
I thought T.Y. was going to run the slot for the Colts, and I was impressed how much Campbell stepped up. He ran 37 snaps from the slot, tied for the most in the NFL. he had 9 targets there, caught 8 or 6 catches, 71 yards, and then yeah,
And the touchdown.
we know. And we know how much Rivers loves the slot. We've seen it with
Yeah.
Keenan Allen. The Vikings last week gave up 13 catches, 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns to slot receivers. So I think Paris is going off.
I love the fact that a lot of us have been talking about either Vikings or Colts players in this week. I think this is going to be the matchup of the week, to be honest with you, just because of the poor defensive play on both sides. This is going to be like the fantasy barn burner. If you have a running back in this game, you're going to be happy. You have a wide receiver in this game, you're going to be happy. I was really disappointed that Jack Doyle didn't get more targets than
When he's
last
dealing with
week.
an injury now too, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going down. This is crazy.
Fantasy
Mo-
football
Mo-
here, baby.
Mo Alley top season. Let's go.
Don't put that on me. All right, as the Jack Doyle manager, don't put that on me.
Get ready.
David, who's the start for you at wide receiver?
My start is a guy who's been put in a bit of a crappy situation, and that's OBJ. 3 out of 10 catches last week.
Nobody sets up things like you do. Nobody does, my friend.
Look, 3 out of 10 is not impressive, don't get me wrong. But what I like about it is that 10. 10 means opportunity for me. They had a horrible game. He's pissed off. There was a couple which OBJ could have taken to the house if Baker was on target. Once again, I think it's a case of week 1 blues. I'm putting that to the side. I think Baker is going to bounce back a little bit this week, and I can see those numbers going up. I think he's still going to get those 10 to 12 touches. He wants redemption. He wants to get traded, so he's playing to show off to a team, especially in prime time on Thursday night.
I like that if Landry doesn't play.
Right,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
also dealing with
Because
an injury
there's
as well.
rumors that Landry might not play too. So OBJ definitely, I can see that.
Yeah,
And
David,
you know me, David. I don't like OBJ.
is there any particular reason why not an OBJ? Did he burn
He
you in
just
the
hasn't
past?
impressed me. He hasn't impressed me. He had his one good rookie season. He made a really good catch that was a highlight reel catch,
Right.
and then he got into a fight with a kicking net.
But he's gotten over 1,000 yards in every single year, excluding that 1 year where he only played 2 games or 3 games. Over
Brandon
1,000
Cooks
yards
gets
every single
1,000
year.
yards every year, and I'm not drafting him in the second round.
Yeah, true. I just think he's such a talent, and he's
He
just on a
just
bad
doesn't
team.
have. I'm not a fan of Baker, so that's my main reason
Yeah.
I don't like OBJ.
Yeah.
I don't feel he has. Eli wasn't the greatest quarterback to throw to him either. So, but if Landry's not playing, I can completely agree with you on the OBJ start.
So, Nate, your wife chimed in here with a good take right here. I want to get everybody's opinion. Going back to that Chicago-New York game, is Darius Slayton the guy, and therefore should we just fade
Okay.
Sterling Shepard?
Let me go ahead and give a little bit of background on this. Number one is in the Scott Fish Bowl League, she went into that game and needed, I don't know, at least maybe 8 or 9 points out of Sterling Shepard and got nothing. Therefore, he is on her proverbial shit list for the rest of the season. No matter what he does, she will hate him. She will hate James White because Tariq Cohen is who she wanted and didn't get him and got James White. So very vindictive. I love her and all, but at the same time, I understand. Yeah, your question about is Darius Slayton the guy? Darius Slayton was my guy from the very beginning when we did our very first mock draft. Jorge, you asked me who the number 1 in New York was, and as much as I couldn't disagree about Golden Tate, I do think Golden Tate should maybe be the number 1. I think Darius,
as well.
I think Darius Slayton has the highest upside, the highest ceiling of all of them.
Daniel Jones seems to like to throw to him.
He does.
Look, Sterling Shepard is the number 4/number 5 receiver on his team, behind Slayton, behind Evan Ingram, behind Saquon Barkley. Then it's really him or Golden Tate. So I'm not a believer in Shepard. He had multiple years to prove that he is the guy in New York, especially when OBJ left a couple of years ago. He hasn't done it. So in my opinion, he's a guy with a very low floor, and his upside is minimal. So I love Slayton. I'm all about it.
The injury, you just can't trust Shepard to stay a full 16. It really is what it comes down to. And I think what you said about the rapport definitely is there. Todd, who's the wide receiver that you're sitting also this week?
I'll go. We talked about him a little bit earlier. I'll go Keenan Allen.
Okay.
Tough matchup. He's got New England, right?
No, the Chargers have the
Bills,
Chiefs.
right? Or Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it's mainly just because of what Tyrod Taylor did in the passing game with them looked more Mike Williams' way. So he's just a sit for me. I just want to wait and see. He's like a guy I want to wait and see before I plug him back in my lineup.
I'm trying to decide who I drop on so many benches to pick up Mike Williams right now. Honestly, I honestly think that might be the guy you might want to own there.
I think the whole offense is kind of wait and see right now.
And right now, the Chiefs, our secondary is kind of banged up. We have like L'Jarius Sneed is probably the number one corner going to be matched up against Keenan Allen. Travaris Ward has a broken hand. We don't know if he's going to play. Rashad Breeland. It's kind of a messy situation right now. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I could see. I just don't. I'm not a big fan. I don't trust Tyrod to put up significant numbers. I think this is the Eckler game, in my opinion.
Like, I think he'd be lucky to
Henry.
push. I think Tyrod Taylor would be lucky to push 250 passing yards, maybe.
I mean, they're going to be playing from behind. That's
Ryan,
obvious.
True, that is true.
That's a good point.
time.
Ryan, I totally agree with you with Mike Williams. You look at Tyrod's time with Anthony Lynn in Buffalo. He was targeting Charles Clay, a.k.a. the biggest target the Bills had downfield. He's not the check down guy that Phillip Rivers was. I think he still can throw it, and he goes to the type of player he feels comfortable with, and that definitely fits Mike Williams' mold. I didn't think Mike Williams was going to play last week. All the hype
Neither
leading
did I.
into week one, he was.
I didn't draft him in every league because I figured he was still hurt, and now I'm trying to panic as to what decent wide receiver I have on my bench that I can drop, because I do believe that Mike Williams is going to be a contributing member to somebody's fantasy team this year.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Let me ask you guys a question. We'll just spitball this as we wrap up. This Falcons-Cowboys game, is this going to be a shootout, you think?
So with my wide receiver starts, I love CeeDee Lamb this week, and that's only because Blake Jarwin's gone. That opened up a bunch of targets in the middle. I think that the Atlanta Falcons are going to focus on trying to stop Zeke, and that's going to open up the field for a lot of people are upset with Dak and how he did last week. I love CeeDee Lamb this week. So
CeeDee Lamb's, but he only had 10 less targets than 10 less snaps, than Cooper. Look at week 2, especially for a rookie who has not even played a preseason game. That's pretty darn good.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one guy, I was just going to say, the one guy I forgot to mention my wide receiver sit, and it's a guy we mentioned it before. His hamstrings are as soft as clam chowder. It's Jamison Crowder.
Dude,
this guy.
I thought you were going to say Will Fuller.
No, it's on paper.
another one.
If you look at this and you go 7 of 13 for 115 yards and touchdown, that's impressive, right? However, he took one to the house for 75 yards. You take that away, it's 6 of 12 for 40 yards and no touchdown. That does not impress me. If he doesn't take one to the house, that's what you're getting out of Jamison Crowder. It's 3 or 4 yards, dink and dunk. Yes, he's okay in PPR, but it's too much of a risk.
It was
Like
the
Robbie
Bills
Anderson,
too.
Robbie Anderson had that had a good game because he had a 75-yard touchdoan. All of a sudden,
Exactly.
Robbie Anderson's the new hotness. Don't get me wrong, I like Robbie Anderson, not this week though, but
No, I don't either. And to answer that question, I'm a Noah Fant fan over Hayden Hurst. I like Hayden Hurst going in. I just think there's so many mouths to feed. I just feel like that's going to be a flip of a coin. I feel like Noah Fant's going to be heavily involved each week. I mean, even with Sutton back, I still think he's
Fant is
heavy.
part of that offense, whereas I feel like Hurst is a red zone option.
Yes.
You have to hope Hurst is going to get you a touchdown if you're going to have a good week out of him. I don't think he's going to be like Austin Hooper, where he's going to get 100 yards on 8 catches. But it's just I love Fant. I love Fant this week.
So Carson is asking for Fant or Hurst rest of season. You still feel the same way, Nate?
I do. Yeah, I do. I going into the season, I really, really was kind of high on Hurst, and maybe I shouldn't back off yet, but I get the feeling that maybe I'm starting to see a trend with him that he has the ability. We clearly know he's talented athletically to be able to put himself in position, but why hasn't he? What's going on? What are we missing? Maybe it's something that he has to get acclimated with the offense, but I think Fant's ready to take off.
And this is it's a tough part about this season because right now, players on teams have either had 100% of the games being great weeks or bad weeks because they've only played one game, right?
Right.
So it's really hard to just. It's like saying, "Oh, you should cut Saquon Barkley because he only got 6 rushing yards." You know?
I got
I think we-
so
or like
many
Leonard
ball
Fournette.
trade offers on him this week. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette as well. I mean, look, I think he's going to ease into that offense, but by week 3, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones didn't impress me. I think Leonard Fournette is a great buy low. You can get
I
him for
had
peanuts.
somebody. Yeah, I had somebody hit me up in my DMs on TikTok today saying that they traded Malcolm Brown for Leonard Fournette. What do I think? And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. You're trading the guy who's about to lose the job for the guy who's about to get the job.
Exactly.
That's great. You're going to get a week or 2 out of Malcolm Brown. Eventually, Cam Akers is going to start to work his way into that offense. Eventually, he'll take over that job. Malcolm Brown's definitely still going to be, a pain in the butt and take away some work from you, but he is definitely not going to be the guy there, in my opinion. So if you can trade him for a guy who's going to be somebody, that was a great trade.
So I want to end the show with some advice to the fantasy managers out there. And Ryan, let's start with you. You made a very good point about being smart about how you're doing your trades. If you could give advice to somebody after week 1, because we all know people panic after week 1. They're like, oh, I have to reset my entire roster because things didn't work out. What advice could you give to some fantasy managers as far as how to keep a level head or whatnot?
For me, it's if you're going to send a trade offer out, before you hit the send button, think to yourself, is this a trade I would accept? Because if it's a trade that you're not going to accept, the chances of that person, especially for me personally, I'm in a lot of competitive leagues. The people I'm playing with, they know what they're doing. House leagues, that might not apply so much. If you're just playing with friends and family, I mean, sometimes you have that uncle who just wants that name because he likes the person. But if you don't feel comfortable with the trade offer yourself, don't bother sending it. Make sure you're sending the appropriate trade offer. That starts a good discussion.
David, what about you? What's some advice you can give to somebody?
So Warren Buffett has a famous line about treating the stock market. Be fearful when people are fearless, and be fearless when people are fearful. And that applies to fantasy football. Buy low on the guy that you know is a star. You buy low on your Saquon Barkleys, your Leonard Fournettes, guys who had a bad week. And sell high on the guys who, if you have Jameson Crowder and someone gives you Leonard Fournette, take it. So sell high on those guys who you know are not going to be consistent, and take advantage of guys that you know are consistent producers. So that's my one thing. Everyone has the week 1 panic where they just want to offload their whole team. Take advantage of that. It's a good time to do it.
A lot of Michael Thomas owners out there looking for some fixes.
Take advantage. It's good.
So David, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us on Fourth and Frames. Ryan, it was really good to meet you. Follow him at the Fantasy Dude over on TikTok. Again, he pumps out lots of great content, and we're happy to have him on anytime you want, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
David, as always, sir, we'll see you next time. Are you going to be on the show on Sunday?
I'll be there.
Nice. Todd, Nate, as always, gentlemen, you guys do a great job. And for all you Four-Eyed fans out there, thank you very much for tuning in. Check out our Four-Eyed matchups article that will be coming out tomorrow, while Todd will be examining a player going up against the team and whether or not they have the advantage or not in that matchup. And then obviously tune in on, on Sunday for our pregame show, and we'll get you ready for week 2. So for everybody, I'm Jorge. Catch you next time.
See ya.